Hi there, welcome back. Let's look at lesson 7.2, understanding the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so basically that says if you add the sums of the squares of the lengths of the two sides of a right triangle, of a triangle, and that equals the length of the square of the third side, then the triangle has to be a right triangle. See, so basically, if you have all three side lengths and you plug them into the Pythagorean theorem, and it works, then the triangle has to be a right triangle. If it doesn't work, then it's not a right triangle. So let's take a look at what that's talking about. Okay, so here we have a triangle. We're not sure if it's a right triangle. We're going to figure that out using the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, let's plug in all three of these sides. So if this were the right triangle, if this were a right angle, then this would be my c. Again, the biggest number has to be c, so you've got to plug the biggest number into your c. So 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 6 squared. That's, we're going to solve the left side and see if it equals the right side. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. 6 times 6 is 36. 9 plus 16 is 25. 25 does not equal 36. So this is not, these are not the three lengths of a right triangle. This is not a right triangle. It's a triangle, but not a right triangle. All right, let's try another one. Again, the biggest number, the longest side has to be C. So 20 is the biggest number out of the three. I have to plug in 20 for C. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Let's see if this is a right triangle. So 12 times 12, 12 squared, plus 16 squared equals 20 squared. Again, the biggest number has to be my hypotenuse because that's the longest side. So 144 plus 16 times 16 is 256, and 20 times 20 is 400. So now let's add this together, and 400 does equal 400. So yes, this is a right triangle. These three lengths can be the sides of a right triangle. Okay, now let's take a look at one like this. Can the sides of a right triangle have lengths 5, 15, and the square root of 250? Okay, so now the square root of 250 is about 15.8. So I know that this has to be side C because that's going to be the biggest number out of the three. So let's check it out. Let's plug this into the Pythagorean theorem and see if it works. 5 squared plus 15 squared equals, now I'm going to write this, the square root of 250 then in parentheses squared. That's what that looks like if you plug that into your calculator. All right, so 5 times 5 is 25. 15 times 15 is 225. And then now the square root of 250 times the square root of 250, that's what that says. So that's exactly what you're going to plug into your calculator. So the square root of 250, put that in parentheses, times, and then put in another set of parentheses, the square root of 250. And when you do that, it equals 250. So now let's add this side. So 25 plus 225 is 250. So since 250 equals 250, yes, these are the lengths of a right triangle because a squared plus b squared does equal c squared. All right, let's try one with some fractions. Let's take a look at down this. It says, the side lengths of three triangles are shown. Which of the triangles are right triangles? Well, let's see, this is the biggest number out of these three, so I know this has to be C. So let's just do this. This squared plus this squared equals this squared. Okay, so folks, this is 3/7 times 3/7. So 3/7 times 3/7 is 949. So multiply 3 times 3 and 7 times 7 for your top and bottom number. Again, 4/7 times 4/7 is 1649. 5/7 times 5/7 is 25/49. And now because the denominators are the same, let's add the top. So 9 plus 16 is 25/49 equals 25/49. So since that is true, triangle 1, those are three sides of a right triangle. Okay, let's try this one. So this is the biggest side out of these three, so this has to be C. So I'm just going to do 8 squared plus 8 squared equals 15 squared. This, again, longest side has to be C. So 8 times 8 is 64. 8 plus 8 times 8 is 64 equals 15 times 15 is 225. Okay, I know that 64 plus 64 is only 128. That does not equal 225. So triangle 2, those cannot be the sides of a right triangle because a squared plus b squared does not equal c squared in that case. Okay, so now this is the biggest number out of all three of these. So I'm going to say this squared plus this squared equals this squared. Okay, so 5 times 5 is 25. 17 times 17 is 289. 12 times 12 is 144. 17 times 17 is 289. And 13 times 13 is 169. And 17 times 17 is 289. Okay, so let's keep the denominators the same and add the top. So we have the exact same fraction on both sides. So triangle number 3, these could be the side lengths of a right triangle because it worked. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, let's try another one. Let's take a look at this shaded triangle and see if these could be the sides of a right triangle. Let's plug it into the Pythagorean theorem and see if it works. Okay, so a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I know my biggest side, if I have all three sides, the biggest number has to be the hypotenuse. So this is going to be side C, if this were a right triangle. We're not sure though, let's check it. So 13 squared plus 14 squared, these are your two legs, A or B, equals the square root of 340 squared. Okay, so 13 times 13 is 169. 14 times 14 is 196. Now again, look, this is how you multiply square roots. The square root of 340 times, this is how you're going to plug it into your calculator, times the square root of 340. You got to put it in parentheses. So the square root of 340 times the square root of 340 is 340. So now when you add these two on this side, that's 365. 365 does not equal 340, so this could not be the three sides of a right triangle. This is not, this one asks, is this the correct height? And no, that it cannot be because it didn't work. Let's try one more of those. So let's take a look at this one. Which shaded triangle is the side is a right triangle? Well, again, let's plug them into the Pythagorean theorem and see if it works. Okay, so this is your biggest side, your longest side, your hypotenuse, so that has to be C. So the square root of 9 squared, A squared plus B squared, 63 squared equals 144 squared. Let's see. Square root of 9 times the square root of 9 is 9. 63 times 63 is 3,969. 144 times 144 is 20,736. So now because these are on opposite sides, we have to subtract to get them together on the same side. So now 9, oh no, I'm sorry. These are on the same side, so let's add these two together. 3,969 plus 9 is 3,978. That does not equal 20,736. So this is not the sides of a right triangle.